This episode of the PC Perspective Podcast is brought to you by Lenovo. See more at Lenovo.com. Hey everybody, welcome to the PC Perspective Podcast. This is episode 404, not found.
404.
I'm Ryan Shrout.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath.
And I'm Allyn Malventano.
I'd like to welcome you. By the way, it is June 15th as we record this. I think I forgot to mention that. It is Hell on Office Day. No, 404 AC not found.
Yes.
Why do I stick around here again?
Know.
For the third day in a row.
Now there's not even air conditioning.
Ken comes in the room and the office and starts stripping clothes immediately. It's very awkward.
As is tradition.
Yeah.
Dude.
They had to turn down the lights, otherwise the reflection was too high.
If Alan and I look like shinier than normal, it's the sweat beating up on my forehead every 12 minutes. The AC has been out essentially since Friday.
Yeah.
We've had AC repair people out Friday, Monday, Tuesday, and today. And they know jack all.
And today the guy was kind of like, I don't know.
I don't know. I'll be back tomorrow and we'll try putting some oil in it or something.
Yeah.
I'm like, awesome. So I went to my house, and when I was working exclusively out of my house, I had it's a Whirlpool freestanding air conditioning unit.
It's like a mini fridge.
It's like a mini fridge, but it's an AC unit. It's essentially a window unit when you don't want to have a AC thing hanging out your window, but it still has an exhaust out the window. And it hasn't done jack. Actually, I am very curious. Can you check what the temperature is on the thermostat back there? I just want to see if it has even decreased 1 degree.
I bet it's gone up.
It's probably
gone up. You know, it reached 88 earlier, and I'm pretty sure we went back to the future for a while.
Let's see. What do you got, Ken? 85. We've actually gone down 3 degrees. And I think a lot of that is because it rained outside and the temperature outside was reduced dramatically.
For context, it's 70 degrees outside and it's 85 in here.
Yeah. Is it really 70? Is it really that low?
I just looked it up.
Okay. So it's 70 outside, it's 85 inside. It makes it very difficult, nigh impossible to test new graphics cards like I need to do when I have to say, a room ambient temperature is 88 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
So we have been avoiding that.
We were seeing some thermal throttling.
Yeah.
It's real funny.
These GeForce GTX cards are awful.
Yeah. These cards suck.
How dare they throttle? So anyway, welcome to the show. We record the show on Wednesday nights at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific at pcper.com/live. If you want to join us for the live show, we really would love for you to do it. You can subscribe to our live stream mailing list. I feel like I should change the name. The word mailing list has like too many negative connotations, right? This is our PC Perspective Live notification center. Right, and where we'll send you an email when we're going to do a live event today. We sent it out about 9:15-ish or so. Let you know when we're going to do this podcast. Just a little gentle reminder, hey, don't forget, it's Wednesday night. And if we do other live streaming events like we did for the GTX 1080 launch, when NVIDIA's Tom Peterson was out here, we sent out notifications a day or two in advance of that as well. So sign up for that list if you like us, or even if you don't. I don't really care. Just sign up for the list. Also, in support of regaining air conditioning, we're going to start a Patreon campaign. It's at patreon.com/PCPer. It actually has nothing to do with air conditioning and everything to do with creating content. So we have a Patreon.
Buying a church.
Yeah, for buying churches.
Yes.
But the church has working air conditioning as far as I know.
Two
HVAC
of
units.
them.
I guess one of them technically didn't work when we went for the inspection.
That's true.
But they will fix it before we take
Ownership.
There you go. Thank you. So we are running a Patreon campaign. The idea here is to go to our readers, our viewers, our listeners, and say, hey, if you like the show, if you like the content we create, help us out, support us directly. It helps us both in bringing on new people, keeping people. It allows us to maintain that Ken has to show up on Wednesday nights to do this damn show. So Alan doesn't have to do it by himself as often because we saw how that went last week.
I just kept seeing frantic messages about everything being broken.
It was all broken.
Ken. Hey, Ken.
I was literally in the office about 8 hours beforehand and it was all fine.
Yeah.
Then I left to Allyn.
Josh would like to tell you something.
So we were streaming, and we had like the pre-show going and stuff, and like I went to get up to go check to make sure that the other machine was streaming, and that's when all the guys heard a weird bzzzt sound. And so I wasn't even sitting at the desk when it happened.
You can never get up.
And it just, yeah, I know.
Never get up from the
I'm not
desk.
allowed to get up, apparently.
Rule number one.
So, and as is tradition here now, if you increase or create a new contribution to our Patreon campaign, I will read whatever name you put into the system. The notifications come up to my phone, so I will read your name throughout. So-and-so has contributed, $100,000 a month to our Patreon campaign, and it can be whatever you want, and we'll just have to deal with that. So we'll go for
I'll do burlesque for $100,000 a month.
How
Yes,
much
he will.
Will it cost for you to not?
200.
$120,000.
Oh, no.
I guess we need to start calling this our weekly service as well.
Yes.
Now that we're starting the process of purchasing a church. IRS regulations indicate that we should have weekly, regular occurring services. It doesn't have to be weekly, just regular, reoccurring services.
The IRS, we're not doing a profit.
Yeah, but IRS is still the one that defines whether or not you're a church in the eyes of the federal government. So we're not going to go for tax-free status. That's much more complicated. But so welcome everyone to this week's services. We're going to talk about technology. There you go. See, we covered all of our bases now.
All right.
First up, let's look at real quick. Sebastian posted a review of the Corsair Void Surround 7.1 channel gaming headset. Corsair has they've been doing audio for a while now. I'm trying to think, Josh, when they actually went into speakers for the first time, because their first foray into it was actually pretty good.
Yeah, the SB2500s?
I think that's what it was. I used those for a really, really long time, basically since they came out.
I still am using those on
Are
the
you?
test machine out there.
I think that was the QuakeCon that we got all of the AMD processors, so it's been a hot minute.
Yeah, if it was the QuakeCon where we got like the 100 APUs to give out, then yeah, it's been a long time. So they've continued that, and they've had headsets before. This is not their first headset by far. This is as Sebastian writes here, combines traditional stereo headset with the Dolby headphone-enabled USB dongle, right? So it's actually an analog headset with just traditional stereo connectivity, but it comes with a USB dongle that enables the 7.1 channel interface, and then you plug your headphones into it, right? So you can see that in the shot here, where here's your little USB dongle and the connection there for your headphone slash microphone. Interesting design. I kind of like the design. They're fairly minimalist. They're a little bit smaller than, let's say, the Logitech G633, 933s that we've looked at recently that are quite bulky. These still aren't, they're not earbuds here by any stretch, but they appear to be a little bit smaller in that regard. You've got a volume control located on the exterior. It's a single cable, so it's a single 3.5 millimeter plug for the headphones and microphone, and that's good for if you want to use this headset for like an Xbox 360 or 360 Xbox One or PlayStation 4, whatever
Or
gaming.
an Xbox One.
Xbox One is right, either one you want. The ear cups are attached with as Sebastian calls, a very substantial swivel system. Substantial, and you can see there the kind of slight clicking of the expansion of the headset here. So he is far and above the more musically inclined, audio inclined between he and I. So I'll let you read some about his sound impressions and conclusions in the review. He actually goes through the Q software as well. Corsair Utility Engine is what that stands for, by the way, Q. But if you already use other Corsair peripherals, apparently, this is all kind of integrated into it. So it's nice that it's all one piece of software. You can do your EQ setting, enabling, disabling Dolby headphones, surround effect, that type of stuff. But there is no RGB lighting on this model that we reviewed. I don't know.
Which is funny because that's what Q is for.
Oh, right, for keyboards and mice.
I'm literally shaking. What year is it?
How could you
They don't have RGB. How could they?
I think they have models with RGB. This just isn't one of them.
It's unacceptable.
I know, it happens.
It's 2016 Corsair.
I agree.
Wake up.
Except sheeple.
So the headset, like I said, you can't use the surround sound capability if you're hooking up to an Xbox, PlayStation, something other than a PC that has to have that dongle in use. But it does he actually did notice a big difference. He said there's immediate change with the Dolby headphone feature enabled. The sound was instantly wider, more spacious. Directional sound effects were very good in games. Though he said he did use the movie theater EQ preset for these tests. Bass was a little better than the stereo listening thanks to the EQ boost there. So they're actually pretty good. It's a pretty good headset in terms of audio quality, in terms of features. It's not as fully featured as a lot of other headsets we've seen, but in terms of the price, $79 on Amazon as he wrote this. Solid construction, good comfort, depending on the head shape, obviously. Josh, sorry, I can't really help you with that. And convincing surround effects using the included USB adapter. They describe it as a hybrid product since the Void surround can be used with and without the USB adapter and with game consoles, and it did pretty good with that. So it got a gold award from Sebastian, which is pretty good praise for an audio product from him.
Gold.
Yep. So if you are looking for a new gaming headset and $79 is inside your range, go check out the review of the Corsair Void surround. Also, real quickly, I'll mention if you are on the look for a kind of a mid-range power supply, Lee did post a review of the SilverStone Strider. It's a titanium series part, so it's a very high efficiency power supply. Uh-oh. Something happened, Ken, because I'm on a different page.
I don't know. Try.
Let's see. How about now?
Nope.
Wouldn't be a podcast.
Try exiting it and entering it.
I will exit and then enter it. So this is... Ooh.
Careful with the PSU doing that.
Yeah.
Wow. That laptop's
Look at
doing
that big cap.
It's doing some funky stuff.
I think it's Chrome. Desktop presenter.
She's a big
Do you
one.
see me now? Can you see me now?
What page are you on?
I'm on the desktop.
Nope.
We got desktop.
You don't see it?
No. I still see the same page.
Podcast gear just going on strike because it's too hot.
Yeah, just because it's warm, I guess. Should I reboot this machine?
Yeah.
Let's reboot this machine. So that's I don't have the thing up anymore. What was the price? Somebody tell me the price on the power supply. It's a titanium unit, so I expect it to be a little bit more expensive than what some people may think a 600-watt power supply should run.
How's 140 sound?
That sounds a little bit high for a 600-watt power supply. But again, it's the titanium efficiency that you're really paying for there. Is you're paying for the higher-end componentry that gets you, what is that? Titanium's probably, 96% plus efficiency?
Oh, yeah. I forget the number.
94. It's 94, 96. So it's well beyond when the program started. I remember when 80 plus first began, right? So
And well back in the ancient days when we were playing with Bitcoin, we sort of showed that it saves you pennies over a year.
yeah, it's not significant for sure. Do you see my desktop now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's fine. That's all I wanted you to see so far.
Yeah. But if you think about it, not necessarily the efficiency saving your money, but you're buying a power supply that's obviously made with very high quality components because
That's true.
It's titanium certified. And if you think about it, who needs more than 600 watts these days? You can run 1080 SLI with whatever processor you've got.
Probably 600 watts would be a stretch for 1080 SLI.
Would it?
I mean, you're looking at 180 watts each part. Mm-hmm. So 360 plus 90 for your processor. You're talking about 5. You go up to plus SSDs, hard drive maybe, and you want to leave yourself a little bit of headroom. 600 would be a maybe. 700 would be comfortable. It was an interesting.
I just think people overbuy power supplies.
They
these
do.
days. They don't realize.
Yeah.
Just the TDP
everything is becoming more efficient.
Yeah.
Right.
And sometimes, like as what you see in Lee's reviews, usually when you plot out the efficiency versus the power delivery, like there's a sweet spot, right? Like there's a chunk usually somewhere in the middle, right? So I would bet that most people not only are overbuying power supplies, but they're like you might hit the sweet spot when your system is at full load, which is fine. But what about when it's at idle?
Efficiency curve in the graph, right? So.
That's actually at the lower end on that one.
Yeah, it's actually like 20, but between 20 and 50, your efficiency is essentially unchanged, and after 50%, it kind of drops down.
Although between 20 and 50 is where most people would sit with
Most
the
of the
same
time.
graphics card,
Yes,
some hard drives, a 90-watt
Yep.
processor.
Yep, at a single, especially with a single GPU. It was an interesting.
And even better, at that point, it's dead silent.
Yeah, that's true.
Like these guys don't turn the fan off completely, which I totally agree with Lee is probably a good idea. Just keep it moving very slowly, so there's still
it's
some
not
airflow.
going to affect
can
noise
ramp it up
levels
if you
at
need
all.
to.
Yeah. 80 plus titanium, by the way, is 90% efficiency at 100% load.
Okay.
But 94% efficiency.
89.8.
94, yeah, there you go. 94% efficiency at 50%. So
fitting.
it's good to have. That's actually an interesting table to.
And another thing is the more efficient your power supply, even though you're kind of splitting hairs at that point, but if you can like drop the temperature of the components in the power supply by like 10 degrees, like every 10 degrees, that like doubles your lifetime
right
of electronic components generally, right?
Yeah.
And power supplies are the kind of thing that
might
fail.
It's going to be about 3 hours, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
All of these
In this office right now.
die before the end of the podcast.
Yes, everything. This is it. This is the last show. Everything's just going to be
404. It's an appropriate place
be
to
gone.
end.
Yep.
Everything on. So check out the review if you are looking for a very efficient, not modestly priced part, but a good power supply nonetheless from Lee here. So it also got a gold award. Relatively expensive for 600 watt and no master on-off power switch, which is interesting.
Yeah, that's pretty
Why
annoying.
do that? So moving on to our next story, we're going to talk with Allyn about the Crucial MX300.
Yep.
Crucial, normally known as the budget-priced arm of the Micron Crucial group.
Yep. Micron also makes SSDs. They just tend to be more OEM integrated kind of product.
Right.
Why don't you use something more
enterprise.
imaginative? Like he's the Captain Nemo of SSDs.
But he's not. I was talking more about the MX300.
Talking about the company.
I was talking about company. Trust me. I'm not
Well,
gonna-
I was just trying to get some, dissonance going on. It doesn't make any sense. What the hell? Does
He's
Captain
the
Nemo
Star
have
Trek
to do
red
with that?
shirt of SSD reviews.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh,
Frequently.
I'm going to throw it in that case, and it's going to be the first one to die.
No, that's me. That's me.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the Crucial MX300. I find it's interesting. They're only releasing it in one capacity.
So far.
Well, whatever.
They're going to come out with other ones, but
they're releasing it as a 750 gig drive.
Launching.
Yeah.
With just one capacity, yes.
That's a weird capacity, too. You don't normally see that capacity in SSDs.
Yeah, it's an oddball.
True.
Yeah, I've never seen a 750.
You have to.
I don't know. I've always gone 500 to 1 terabyte.
They've made Evos and 750s occasionally.
Okay, so here's why it's an oddball capacity. They're speccing it for all of the 16 dies running in TLC mode. And TLC, 3 bits per cell.
Right, that's T is for triple.
Gives you, on most flashes, on most flash memory types, gives you an odd capacity.
Okay.
Right. If this was all MLC, it would be
1 terabyte.
No, it would
500?
be 512.
Oh, the other way. Yeah.
Or 500,
Yeah,
right?
Gotcha.
2 versus 3.
Yep.
Yeah.
Kind of like a biream versus trireme. You know what I'm saying? All you Greek historians out there.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a few firsts in this drive. This is the first time we're seeing IMFT 3D NAND.
Intel Micron
Flash technology.
Flash technology, not foundry technology.
Yep.
Gotcha.
That is their joint thing about, a little bit over a year ago is when I was out of town and they did this, hey, we're going to do this little press conference thing. And it turned out to be, oh, wait, crap, we're doing like 3D NAND. Picked the perfect time to announce it. So we've been waiting for that to come out in something. Intel talked about it possibly coming out in some drives, but they're not here yet. They're not sampled. They're not shipping. So lo and behold, this is it. This is first shipping consumer 3D NAND from these guys. I had some concerns about what the write speed would be of Intel/Micron's 3D NAND.
Is that because of this dynamic write acceleration? This is separate.
Separate.
The MX2,
just the NAND in general, right? I had some concerns on what the speed would be.
I'm not
however, something that they designed into this NAND when they made it is most NAND is what's called dual plane.
Okay.
Okay. So each die is split up into 2 sections. Each section has its own little buffer on the front end. And so if you go to write to that flash, it goes into that buffer, and then you tell it, okay, write to this area. And then from the buffer in the background, it goes from that buffer into the flash, which takes a certain amount of time, right?
It does.
But if you have dual plane, you can actually do stuff with the other plane while one is busy.
No
Okay?
way.
So it's, kind of multitask within a single die, right, of flash. Their flash, to kind of get around this potential problem, this is quad plane. So each die...
Twice as many places to address.
So 750 gig across only 16 dies, you might suspect there would be speed problems because that's not that many dies to spread that capacity across.
Okay.
Right? However, effectively, they've doubled that compared to what their previous flash would have done. Right? Each die would have had 2 planes before. Now each die has 4. Okay, so that helps.
Does that get you?
If you're writing straight to TLC, this drive can do 300 meg per second.
Compared to, what did it do before?
Well, but there wasn't a before.
Well, is it just a straight doubling of write performance then, or do you think it is?
No, it's not doubling. That's the thing. First of all, we don't have much IMFT running in TLC mode to compare to.
Okay.
Right, because typically those drives ship MLC. But, like a 30 meg per second per die is typically like a decent number. You kind of want it to be a little bit higher, but that's kind of a roundabout number, right? And this was going, calculated off of what we saw, 19.
Okay.
So it's going a little bit slower, but that would have been like 9 had they not doubled, for this very drive, had they not done quad plane.
Right.
This would have been like 10 meg per second per die as opposed to 20, right?
Okay.
So kind of good there. But there's some other tricks this thing can do, and that is it's doing the dynamic DWA, which is dynamic write acceleration, right? They're implementing that. They're doing it a totally different way than they did it in the M600. Now, we reviewed the M600. It was like sometime last year. We reviewed it. It was just kind of up and down on its write speeds. You didn't know if you were going to be writing to SLC or to MLC.
Right.
It didn't really act like most of the other hybrid drives do, which is where they have a static SLC cache, and it always empties as soon as you're idle the drive at all.
Yeah.
So you basically, most of the time, you're writing straight to SLC and going full speed, right? The M600 didn't do that. You could start writing to that drive, and if it happened to say, well, I want to write to MLC now instead of SLC, it would just go the slower speed, right? Which was kind of annoying.
Sure.
This drive behaves a little bit differently. It still is not a static amount of cache. It's still not like just a sectioned off, you will have X amount of SLC. Okay? However, it's more aggressive about making sure that during idles, it does have SLC available.
It's making sure that during idles, it's clearing out space for...
It won't necessarily have to clear out space, because this is dynamic write acceleration. It's doing what Micron kind of cooks into those dies.
Okay, I remember this now. Yeah. So they start out all SLC.
Yeah, so this drive, when new, starts out I think up to 60% of it could be in SLC mode.
Yeah.
The thing I didn't know until doing the coordinating with Micron on this drive, because I had some bugs that had to work out early on and actually push the launch, and we were working with them on it, is that it's not a die that flips. It doesn't have to empty a die of flash and flip it from mode to mode. It can actually program at the block level. It can change those blocks. So a block is some 6 meg, something like that.
Right.
It can just say, okay, you block over there, you're not TLC, you're SLC. If it's empty, it can do that, right? And at the block level, that's super, super granular. That's just so that means that the drive can maintain the parallelism across all the dies it's writing to. It could just say, well, I feel like writing to all of them in TLC mode. So it just puts them in TLC mode as it's writing to them. Okay. And this drive also does a couple of things, if it sees that you're going to write bulk sequentials to it, you're just dumping a bunch of files on it. You're just filling it at max speed, right? It will intentionally go, okay, wait, 60% of the drive is in SLC mode. If I fill all of that in SLC, and it looks like he's really just going to fill it front to back, right? I'm going to kind of screw myself over, because now I'm going to have 60% of the drive in SLC mode. I'll have a little bit of TLC left, and then I'll have to start in the background shuffling stuff around to open up, to flip the SLC back over to TLC mode, right?
Right.
You don't want that to happen. So if it detects that, it will preemptively switch gears and write straight to TLC.
Any idea what that cutoff is?
It's about, if you saturate it, full speed writes at SATA for about 10 or 15 seconds.
Okay. It starts moving ahead.
It just shifts to TLC mode.
The whole thing.
You're from that point on.
I see.
Your writes will just go to TLC.
I see.
Now you will drop from 500 meg per second down to 300 meg per second. Right. But the argument we make on stuff like this is, where are you getting the stuff at that speed anyway? You're not downloading at 300 meg per second.
Sure.
If you're doing a bulk copy from something else that could go that fast, if you're just trying to mirror one drive to another or something like that, which is a thing that could happen.
Something people do. Yeah.
Cutting it off after 20, 30 or so seconds at the top speed And shifting to TLC helps it in the long run, because if it didn't, it would get caught with its pants down halfway through filling the drive. If it tried to go
Josh's worst nightmare.
Yeah, I know, exactly.
One of them.
So basically, they did a bunch of tweaks to improve the dynamic rate acceleration so it doesn't behave poorly.
Okay.
And you still get the advantage of it. You still get SLC cache, that sort of thing. And you should have at least around 10 gig of that cache, even if the drive is completely full. So if you've completely written everything, you should still get a little bit of that cache.
Okay.
Right? But potentially, you could have more, is the advantage that they have over the other drives to do the static thing. Performance, I mean, it looked good. File copies, nothing out of the ordinary. File creation, everything was going like right around at the top of the spectrum as far as comparing to other SATA drives.
SATA drive, SATA drive.
I mean, SATA drives at this point are pretty much saturating things, and I think even though this steps away from full speed, like when you just do bulk writes to it, it only drops down to 300, which is really not that bad of a speed,
right?
Honestly, and we saw a little bit of odd stuff going on the latency percentile tests on writes specifically.
What page?
That is just, there's only one page for the latency stuff.
Gotcha.
If you look at the beginning, though, you look at the reads, which is go down to keep going 2 more. Go past 2 more. Yep, past that one. There you go. All right, so if you look at the reads there, you'll see like the drives that I'm comparing against are pretty much all doing the same thing. They're all Samsung controlled drives, just in the comparison. I didn't have that many drives in there. But then you'll notice that blue line over to the right is
the MX300.
The MX300, right?
Right.
And that's a log scale. So that's basically, the latency is basically double. But the reason the latency is double is that this drive is only doing about half of the IOPS for random read when it's completely full. Now you have to realize the drive is completely filled, 100% full when we do this test.
Right.
So something to consider, read latency for random access is slower. But again, this is a budget drive. That's where they're not going for super speed here. They're just going for reasonable performance. For an SSD that's 3/4 of a terabyte capacity. But then if you go down to the random writes, which is like the next cluster of charts there.
Yep.
It actually starts trading blows with, there you go, there's QDEF1 and QDEF2 is underneath it. Just open up the QDEF2 one. All right. And if you look there, orange is the not yet written up 500 gig Samsung 750 EVO, right? Which is their budget drive.
Right.
So budget drive to budget drive, you got blue versus orange there, and they're kind of going back and forth on how their latency behaves, right?
Okay.
You can see, the blue is, the MX300 has more of the time was spent doing lower latencies compared to the 750 EVO.
Right, I gotcha.
Right? And that same thing held true all the way up to QDEP32.
Gotcha.
Same thing all the way up. Which is, that's good. IOPS were good on writes, which you might not expect because of that dynamic write stuff and all the kind of things you might think get in the way. Well, that's all stuff that they worked all the bugs out enough to the point where they can actually compete with Samsung drives here. So, pretty good. So, the thing that we thought wouldn't be good actually turned out great. And the thing that is normally not an issue, which was the read latencies, was kind of an issue, but not horribly so. It was still low latency. It's just not as low as Samsung.
So it's interesting to me because it's actually a little bit of a different SATA SSD. Like normally when we see new SATA SSDs, it's like, okay, yeah, what's the price?
Right.
They have interesting technological differences in this, so that's good. But it's still, at the end of the day, comes down to price.
It does.
So what is the 750 gig MX300 going to cost me?
MSRP $199.
It's pretty good.
That is
MSRP
good.
is 27 cents per gig.
Yes. That's the starting price.
And when's it supposed to go for sale? Do we know if it's...
I think it should be you should be able to find it by now.
Let me check the Amazon. No, MX300 brings me some...
No?
Office inkjet printers. Let's see. Yeah, crucial. Oh, there it is. In stock, $199.
Well, there you go.
There you go.
So starting out MSRP, and it's actually on sale for that, which is good.
That's pretty good.
It's a pretty good price for an SSD.
Drives usually end up on sale pretty well too.
Yeah.
And decent sales too.
Yeah.
Yep. And yeah, I mean,
like the 500 gig 850 Evo is 154 on Amazon.
Yes.
Okay.
So 850 Evo, even though you might also consider, hey, it's an Evo, so it's kind of a budget drive, it really isn't. That drive is a very good performer. That's actually the yellow line in all those latency percentile charts, and it kind of makes fun of everything else in the comparison there. Like, the latency was just way better on that drive. But you're paying more money. You know, if you really want to split hairs on...
Sure. What's a terabyte 850 Evo cost?
It's $309.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So you're paying $100 extra
over
for
another
$150
$100
gigs.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that much better of a deal in terms of cost per gig, but I think that 750 gig capacity puts it in a really interesting sweet spot of like $199.
It does.
Is a very
$199.
Yeah.
As Josh knows, is a very addressable price.
Yes.
Right. And so if I say, I can spend $199 on an SSD and get 750 gigs, which is probably more than enough that I need for my games and my stuff and everything except long-term storage, 300 plus is now, it feels like it's a more significant investment. It's $100, right? And you can get SSDs obviously for less than $199, but in terms of capacity for that, that's pretty good. So hence the editor's choice.
Yeah, I mean,
a combination of those things.
Can't really, again, it's not the best performer, but for like the budget, someone just wants to put a cheap SSD that performs decently in their gaming system. 750 gig, plenty of games, right?
Yeah.
Put your OS on there, plenty of games. It just seems like it's in that sweet spot. So, yeah. And as far as like other capacities that they make, because what they're doing now is like, they're doing 8 packages, 2 dies per package. Like, try to think of the other capacities they could do there. They can't really go to 500 because that's an uneven number of dies then, right? So they'd have to go to like half of 750 if they wanted to do that.
375 gigabyte SSD.
375. Or they could just double it the other way.
They could do it.
They could double it the other way, and that gives you 1.5 terabytes.
1.5.
That's obviously where they should go.
Which is also a nice 1.5 terabytes at $400 or cheaper. Like, that could be nice.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm with it. I'm down.
Yeah.
Very cool. Check out the full review. That is on PCPer.com as well. Josh.
Me.
You just posted literally moments before this podcast began. ARM introduces, how do I pronounce this? Egil video processor. This is a 4K 120 hertz processor for mobile products. What is interesting about this this IP, I guess?
That's the top of the line version. Now they've got multiple. Basically, ARM has gone through and they've redesigned their video encode decode processor, and they've improved upon it pretty dramatically. So they've taken out some of the older codecs that just aren't used anymore, put in some new stuff. They've beefed up the encode ability, and they've also, of course, beefed up the decode. So you could do at max first of all, it's a scalable architecture. So if you have a single core, it can do a max of 1080p at 80 frames per second decode. And it can also do some encode at that same thing. But the top of the line is the 6-core unit that can do 4K at 120 hertz, which is pretty impressive if you think about how many megapixels per second they gotta render in that. It's something like 970 some odd. But anyway, it's an advancement. They've added more codecs, VP9 profiles. It's ready for high dynamic range. Everything you could possibly seemingly want, and plus they're part of kind of the open codec group, which they, along with Google and a couple other guys, all do these royalty-free codecs that they're trying to get out and get better supported, so that they don't have to pay these strange, outrageous fees for some of these things that are royalty bound. So it's a solid and neat thing. So, for example, it could do simultaneous encode decode. So if you're running a 4K decode, you can also encode up to 4 1080p 30 frames per second streams, which, if you think for a mobile device that is pulling maybe a watt, half a watt, that's a lot of work being done. It's all fixed function. It's not really programmable. So, I mean, that's, some good and bad there. Fixed function is usually more efficient, and it requires less programming. Also, their firmware handles a lot of the stuff going on. They're going to be supporting under first Linux and Android, and who knows what they'll do after that. Possibly these will be seen in TVs around the holiday season, but ARM is expecting these to initially be released in 2016. They didn't give us anything more granular than that. But, they found that the video is one of the bigger workloads that is used on mobile devices, whether it's tablets or your cell phone that can easily do 4K in some situations, and certainly I think my G3 is 2500 by 1440 or so. Products like this to do full resolution video playback in smooth style is something that is certainly needed, and they're advancing that forward. And as we have these mobile devices that have the really dense screens, and more people doing whether it's FaceTime, Skype, Google Hangouts, the ability to be able to encode and decode at the same time and not just totally destroy your battery, it's a big one. And so they have introduced this. It's a big step up from their previous ones. It is compatible not only with the latest G71 processor. I think it's Midgard. I can't remember so many damn code names. But it also is the previous Mali parts, the T880 and below. Some of the older generations that some people are still licensing. So it'll work in those. People can input this IP into their products fairly easily if they license it from ARM, and they get a big jump up in functionality. And because it is scalable, they can really aim it and target it at multiple markets without kind of breaking the bank. Right. I mean, nobody needs to have a 1280 by 720 smartphone having a full 6-core video processor on there. You could easily get done with one or two, depending on the usage. And so it's a nice thing for its partners. It's another source of income from ARM, and certainly the way that they're implementing it seems like it's an easy shot for them with the Android market as well as TVs running on Linux.
Is there any? Did they kind of point to any specific tie-in, like this video processor has to be tied with any certain generation of Mali graphics? Or can it be run independently?
T80 and below, depending on, I don't think it's going to be, like the stuff that goes from 3 years ago, but certainly in the last 2 years, those Mali graphics, it will be compatible with. They just need to integrate it into the design. Of course, it's going to be working perfectly fine with the G71 that will be coming up in 2017, but yeah, they said this is going to be a 2016 product, so we're going to start seeing stuff here in the next couple of months with previous generation Mali.
Very cool. Before we get into our news here for the week, I do want to mention that we did have a Patreon pledge edit up to $10.99 from David Bendel. So thank you, David, for watching and supporting PC Perspective. $10.99, as Josh would say.
That's a good thing.
It's a good thing. So we're going to get to a couple of things here that I don't have specific news posts, but I wanted to mention at least briefly and talk about. E3 was going on this week. In terms of hardware-specific news, there were a couple of interesting things. One, actually, Sony didn't talk about anything in terms of their Neo hardware and their improved console that was going to be coming out in the future.
Well,
right?
They said it existed before the show.
They admitted it existed, but they didn't talk any more specifics.
Yeah, they said they weren't going to talk anything at E3.
Microsoft, on the other hand, actually talked about two new consoles. One of them will be out in August, the Xbox One S, which is a smaller, slimmer design. It looks a lot better. It's in white. I don't know if it's only white. Is it only white?
It'll probably eventually be in black, too.
It looks nice the way it is. And they didn't talk about really specific specification changes going from the Xbox One today to the Xbox One S coming out in August. But we are coming up on the are we in the 3rd year of the Xbox One? Didn't it come out in 2014? So we're only like 2 full years in to the lifespan.
Yeah, I think it's only 2 years.
So Microsoft didn't really say anything about it, but the developer from that did Gears of War 4, Rod Ferguson, I think is his name, was doing an interview and said that they actually have tested it, and the Xbox One S shows, fewer frame drops in tough situations, tough graphical sections and areas of Gears of War 4 than the Xbox One does, indicating that there is some performance advantage. He claims that there are CPU and there are GPU improvements in the hardware going into the Xbox One S, which is interesting, right? Because Microsoft didn't bring it up. They didn't really want to talk about it. I'm going to find the link here that Scott linked me to. It's on a Polygon.com story that's titled "Games Can Perform Better on Xbox One S." Yes, correct. So the actual quote here is, according to Ferguson, the Xbox One S has additional raw GPU and CPU power compared to the Xbox One, and the coalitions, that's the developer, engineers, have been able to take advantage of that to reduce the frequency of frame rate or resolution penalties in more demanding sections of the game. So there clearly is some hardware difference in the AMD silicon of the Xbox One going to the Xbox One S. The other thing that they announced, which is much more significant, is they talked about Project Scorpio, which is another Microsoft Xbox console.
Microsoft said today that there's no hardware change. Like that's not true.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Huh. So Microsoft says that it's not true. The developer of Gears of War 4 says that they can absolutely take that there's additional raw CPU and GPU power. Maybe. See, here's my thing. My guess would be
throttling.
That there is performance difference. Like there is some improvement. Just like silicon improvements over 2 years have occurred. Maybe they just kind of boost the clocks a little bit.
Okay, so I'm actually reading this statement.
Yep.
Saying the Xbox One S is extra GPU and CPU, so it does have that. It's not there to improve performance, but to enable HDR support.
Okay.
So like HDR decode.
HDR decode,
abilities.
4K output. Yeah, so the Xbox One S does add 4K and HDR, right?
Yes.
Yes. So, okay.
So, like, that makes sense. There could be a little more CPU and GPU power there to enable that, which means that the dynamic resolution adjustment isn't happening as often on Gears because it isn't having to throttle as aggressively, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, my guess is that it's very minimal. Whatever the performance delta is between the two consoles. Yeah. What's not going to be minimal is the difference between Xbox One and Project Scorpio, which I thought was a little bit surprising how much detail they talked about Project Scorpio. They mentioned specifically a 6 teraflop rating for it, which is significant.
That's up there.
It's more than the RX 480, the upcoming
but of course
Radeon
CPU and GPU, right?
No, they said 6 teraflop GPU specific.
Yeah,
and it's 8 cores of CPU, up from 4 cores today as well.
So this would have to be, what's the next AMD architecture?
Polaris?
No.
Vega?
It almost has to be Vega, right?
I'm going to say it's Polaris.
But haven't we already seen the biggest Polaris in the 480?
But we don't know what the clocks are, right? Remember that AMD says that Polaris 10 is greater than 5 teraflops. And if you look at the clock speeds, there's a way for it to go from 5.1 to 5.9. Also, keep in mind that this is still. I would be surprised if this were not an APU, right, Josh?
Yeah.
Do we not expect this to continue to be an APU, not like discrete CPU GPU?
Now say that again.
We'd still expect this to be an APU design, right?
Oh,
It's not. They're not going to suddenly revert back to discrete.
One,
yeah.
No, it's not going to be having separate dies on a substrate. It's going to be one.
Yep.
Big old honking thing.
So it's interesting because they're talking about releasing this in holiday 2017. So we have a year and a half before it's going to come out. And there's all kinds of things that puts into the air, right? Like it could be an architecture past Polaris. It might be a Zen-based processor core. They've already talked about Zen-based APUs.
Right? Like,
it doesn't have to be.
It could be Jaguar
crazy.
still. They could double the number of Jaguar cores, increase frequency.
It seems so crazy.
this turns out the CPU is not that important, as it turns out, to gaming.
That's why we're all running AMD processors.
Gigahertz Jaguar 8-core.
Yeah.
It's going to be doing everything perfectly fine.
I would think
that's
so.
probably what they're going to end up doing.
There was a video somebody posted recently on YouTube playing the new Doom on a Pentium CPU.
I saw that Pentium 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was decently playing decently. It wasn't super
Probably running at
fast.
6 gigahertz too.
It's, you know.
So the Project Scorpio thing is interesting to me because it brings in all these questions. And the 6 teraflop rating is actually very impressive. If you look at our GTX 1070 review, which I will go back over here and click so I can make sure I get these numbers right. The GTX 1070 at its base clock is rated at 5.7 teraflops.
So it's more than that.
It's more than that. Now, it's an AMD GPU. We've talked about this when we did our RX 480 preview, where the teraflops to gaming performance of an AMD GCN architecture is a little bit lower ratio than Pascal or Maxwell teraflops to gaming performance actually equates. But that being said, it's still
at least close to it.
It's above what the R9 390X is at. The R9 390X is at 5.6 teraflops.
Yep.
All right, so that's a pretty good comparison of what to talk about. We're talking about 390X plus performance in a console, and that's really impressive. But we're a PC site, and I feel like I should point this out. In a year and a half, we're going to have beyond 10 teraflops GPUs easily, right? Like I honestly would expect, right? So the GTX 1080 is 8.2 teraflops at its base clock, not its boost clock, at its base clock.
Yeah.
The 1080 Ti, whatever that happens to be, is going to be above 10.
Yeah.
Right? It'll probably be 10 or above.
Yep.
And we'll have probably another refresh by then as well. We'll have the higher end AMD stuff.
We'll have Vega by then.
So it will still be impressive, but I keep waiting for this moment where some console vendor will be like, remember the PS3 when it launched, and Josh, correct me if I'm wrong,
You're wrong.
It launched with a GPU that wasn't out on the PC yet.
True.
Or it was announced with a GPU that wasn't out on the PC yet. And it was like, when it was announced, it was matching top level GPU performance. Now, obviously the GPUs on the PC kind of went forward and came out, but they took a really big chance. And that's why that system launched at $699, I think. And they took a big chance there, and it didn't really pay off for them, as it turned out. The Xbox 360 ended up being the winner of that generation, I think. So this is still a big jump. If the Xbox One, I think somebody told me, was rated at 1.4 teraflops, right? I think that's right. I want to make sure I get that right. But if that's the case, this is a significant increase, but it will be 4 years.
Yeah.
We'll be into the 4th year of a project. So it'll be good, but it's not going to blow away any system that you guys are building today. Let me see. 1.31 teraflops is what the Xbox One is. So an increase to 6 is significant. So I'm very curious how they're going to make this backward compatibility.
Rating of the 360.
Of the Xbox 360?
Yeah. I wonder what that jump was.
It's pretty big. It was like a 270 megaflop or whatever.
Gigaflop?
Yeah, gigaflop.
Yeah, let me see what
Probably
the
not
story
megaflops.
says. Yeah,
I got it back ways for that.
Xbox 360 is 77 gigaflops?
That's probably about right. I mean, it's only, 48 shader?
Yeah. But consider this. According to this story, again, this is an IGN story, the Xbox 360 was rated at 77 gigaflops, and the PS3 was rated at 230.
Yeah, but that was that whole emotion engine thing with
7 single-threaded cores.
With the supposed, 7 extra little mini cores?
Yep.
Yeah, that
Emotion
were garbage,
engine.
and you could
Yeah,
never run
PS2.
more than 2 at a time. Otherwise, you would just choke the processor.
Yeah.
God, what a garbage architecture.
It's going to be in your refrigerator. So that's what happened at E3. It's pretty cool stuff. Like I play console games. I play PC games. I'm excited for that. We're excited to do a teardown of the Xbox One S. Hopefully,
to come out of retirement.
Ken's got to come out of retirement in August to come do a midnight stream when we go pick up the Xbox One at Best Buy next door. So we'll do that. The other thing I wanted to mention that we don't have a specific news story on that I wanted to talk about is stock levels of the GTX 1080 and the 1070.
Okay.
Not great.
We had some come out today, but for only about 15, 20 minutes.
Did we kind of expect this might happen? I mean, really?
I expected it to happen. So here's the thing, right? There's two angles to look at this. Here's the two angles. Oh my God, there's a shortage. They can't make them. They don't know how to manage business. They don't know how to produce cards. Nobody can buy them. Nvidia's the worst. Or the other side to look at it is Nvidia can't make enough to keep up with demand for their card.
I think the latter might be what's going on.
I'm sure it's both. Like, clearly, if you're at a sold-out state, you would love to have more to sell.
Yes,
right?
Obviously.
They're clearly...
Well, and they also want to get it out to the public as soon as possible and start making back that R&D.
Yeah,
and unfortunately, we're still at the very, very beginning of products coming off the line. They're doing new testing, they're doing new integration with board members and products, and it's just going to take a time to ramp up.
I mean, it wasn't like some other prior launches that we've seen where like just nobody could get them.
It's actually like every other prior launch we've seen for NVIDIA in a while.
For NVIDIA, it has been where it's just happened. When the 980 and 970 launched, it was an amazing launch, and it was hard to get cards.
Yes,
right.
And they were so cheap. They were at or below MSRP. Absolutely.
Wait,
I think there's
on
some
the 980 970
there.
No, they were charged a huge premium, just like they are this time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hell, it happened with the 680.
So there's a story from Anthony over at Tweaktown that says, the 1080 cards are above $699 and supply issues ? And clearly there are supply issues. The question is what is the source of the supply issue? Is it truly that NVIDIA made an architecture that is bad, that they can't produce enough chips? Or is it that their supply issue is a good issue and that demand
can't
is
make
high?
them fast enough.
Right. Because
one thing is in no short supply is enthusiasts willing to buy them straight off.
Clearly,
because they're buying them.
We see them come in stock and they go out of stock within an hour every time, right?
Yeah.
And I'm getting tweets all the time from people about, hey, this is in stock, hey, this is in stock, right? Because there's a lot of people checking for this stuff.
So that means
there's a very simple business 101 thing here, right? Of supply and demand.
Right.
You want to supply just enough to meet demand at an optimal price.
Yeah.
And if you're NVIDIA, you want it to be a higher price.
Sure.
The highest price you can get for the product.
It's like this might be the reason for Founders Edition.
Correct. Right? But if you have too many, they sit on the shelf and it looks bad for you. So that's the thing.
Well, we know they're not sitting on the shelf.
If there were, if you went to Newegg and there were 12 1080s in stock today, is that good or bad? 12 individual ones, you didn't know how many were there, but today, right now, you could go buy a 1080 at MSRP. What's that tell you?
That would just tell me that they were keeping them in stock.
Right. It doesn't tell you how many they're selling. It doesn't tell you anything.
Right.
Unless you are getting those specific numbers.
Right.
And I get pinged from people,
and you don't have
AMD,
the numbers from
say, hey, look at the story, they're having issues, and I just can't. I can't get behind the idea that there's something wrong because NVIDIA is selling them. I see them show up and they go to sale.
Here's the long and short of it. There's nobody else that is Intel.
Right.
Intel starts producing these things. They've got all these warehouses, and they just start stocking up, and they just keep quiet because they don't have any competition that they need to release new stuff. And so when they make these products available, typically, and this didn't really happen with the 6700K mind,
true,
but typically they just flood the market with as many chips as they can sell at the price points they want. Now, how many of the new X99 platform chips have you ever seen not in stock?
Never. Right?
Yeah.
Sure.
But they have the comfortable seat of, we'll just put it out there price and we'll just wait. Because we're Intel and we make $4 billion a quarter. Who cares if the inventory sits?
And you don't have people that have been waiting on the edge of their seat for an upgrade for the 6700K.
So
because a CPU upgrade is just not the same.
Yeah.
And one Zephyr in the chat is saying, like, look at what the iPhone does, right? The iPhone, when it first releases, is hard to buy.
Yep.
But
On
nobody says, "Oh my God,
Apple can't make them.
they can't make them." Like,
have
yes, you
problems.
can't make them fast enough, but that doesn't mean you're not selling enough, or you're not selling what you plan to sell, or you're not selling what you wanted to sell.
Like, there's a lot of people that have 1080s and 1070s. Like, they have them. Like buddies of mine have bought them. They got them in. Right?
Yeah.
It's not like just, oh my God, we can't make them. We have supply
Obviously,
issues.
the thing that would answer it is if I said, "Hey, NVIDIA, how many 1080s have you sold through?" and they would give me a number, but they're not going to tell me that number.
No, they're not going to tell you that.
Right? I was told from some people inside that at add-in card vendors that they expected the supply of the 1080 to be about equivalent to the supply of the 980 Ti when it launched.
Okay.
Right? And the 980 Ti was a very successful product.
Sure.
So I tend to see that as a good sign for NVIDIA.
Yeah.
That they're selling it. Now, 1070s are a different issue. I was kind of out of it when those launched. I was coming in and out of San Francisco during that, so I don't really know how that worked out, like the Founders Editions and stuff.
About the same.
Is it about the same?
About the
1070's different chip, right?
The same chip, just fewer shaders.
Different memory.
They just are
It's
great.
G-
They're blowing fuses.
Essentially, they're
Like
just
they're just-
yielded down,
They're
step
yielded
down
down.
chips.
Okay.
So it's the same GP104 die.
Okay.
yes.
Same die.
And it's GDDR5 memory set of 5X.
What's funny is that actually means that it's just this balancing act. Like, if one is doing really good,
right?
like the other might actually be doing bad because, like, if they just have great yields,
right.
they just might not
They
have
have
enough
to- they might have-
1070 chips.
But they
Like,
would, if you have
laser
an
cut
abundance of
them.
1080s and you're going to have too much of them, you would just purposely cut some down and go down to 1070s.
I guess.
You would do it. You would. I mean, if that's the product you put out there.
Yeah.
But that's all decisions they've made a long time ago. I don't know.
Hey, guess what? Couldn't buy Fury X when it launched.
Yeah, that too.
True.
Yeah, but we had other bitches
And
about
AMD
the Fury X
launches
was
are a
that
bit
coil
different.
wine.
Well,
Like, so, I mean,
that's
here's the
completely
thing.
separate from if you could buy one or not.
Right. So here's the thing, right? Here's the question. On June 29th, the RX 480 will launch.
Yep.
There will be some for sale that day.
Sure.
How do we determine if it's a successful launch? Is it that they all sell out, or that they're all in stock?
And then
Like,
if they all
this-
sell out, do you email that same guy that from AMD that emailed you right now?
Yeah, I
and
would,
be like,
but-
hey,
but,
what's
like,
what issue is this
You
now?
can't make enough of these.
from the outside, from the consumer point of view, us, anybody who's not Newegg who sees a sell through,
Sure.
it's a binary state:
Yeah.
in stock, out of stock,
Yeah.
and you don't know the build up to either of them.
Yeah.
Right. So
And let me tell you, after being 4 years on 28 nanometers, there's a significant buildup.
there's a huge buildup of
Huge.
desire
Oh, yeah.
for GPUs. Yes.
We're
There's-
used to 14-month refresh from years and years. That remember when AMD and NVIDIA would have 6 to 8 months on a pretty significant speed bump, like the GeForce 3 to the GeForce 3 Ti,
Yep.
and those kind of bounces. We haven't had that in. I mean, certainly from the 680 to the 980, it's a pretty good jump, but that is mostly architectural work and design, and it is not that big as compared to taking a 2-process node jump with these 14 and 16 nanometer products.
Yeah.
But like, there's a blockage in the channel, maybe a stone in the stream, if you will, and there's a lot of us looking for a new release.
Right.
It would just be nice to do a nice upgrade cycle. Right now, it's like, Nvidia's launched-ish, but I ain't even going to touch it.
So
So goodness knows that there are no new and interesting games that have come out in the past 4 months that you would like to have a new GPU with.
Ken pointed me to a link on WCCF that says it is from 11 months ago, where AMD claims that the Fury X is out of stock due to high demand, and that HBM and Fury X were ramping up as expected. Right, so
Well, you can't make them fast enough.
they just couldn't make them fast enough to get them out there. So it's a balancing act. And I did see somebody in the chat, I think his name was Bill M, says NVIDIA stock price is how you tell how they're doing. And NVIDIA stock price is as high as it's ever been in the entirety life of the company.
Well, that's.
It's not.
Stocks
but
have a bad habit
but it's an
of
indicator of
you know,
what people in the market think they're doing.
Sure, it's what people think
Correct.
they're doing.
Right.
It's not necessarily what they're actually doing until their earnings get announced.
Have you seen stock forums and chat groups? Like, if there was a shortage and they're only selling 4,000 of them since launch, people in the Yahoo stock forums will be talking about it.
Yeah, I guess.
It's just one of the things that we get comments about all the time. I get tweets about it all the time, and I wanted to make sure that we addressed it in some manner because it's just incredibly hard for us to track. And I hate shitting on a company, whether it be AMD or Intel or Nvidia, for having stock or no stock for some amount of time, because demand might be high. Like, oh my God, I can't believe Nvidia, you're the worst. You don't have any 1080s in stock. And they're like, look, we've sold 25,000 of them. That's just more than we thought we'd be able to sell in the first month. And I'm just making up numbers, obviously, but I don't know.
I think, so this is like what? The first week that it's
The 1070.
an issue
No.
No, it's been an issue since launch.
for 1080?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's been an issue where it's been in, out, in, out, in, out. Right? So what's the service
In and
that
out,
lets you know
in and
about
out.
like is there a Newegg stock service website type thing? What's that website people go to check?
Camel doesn't do that?
No, there was one you used to look for the
Now in
monitors.
stock.
Now in stock.
Yeah.
So if you go to nowinstock.com and
It might be .net. I'm not
that's
sure.
don't go to .com. That's not the right place.
Not.
But if you go nowinstock.net and look for a product, sometimes they have things listed, sometimes
GTX
they don't.
1070 is like the first
Do they have
automatic
it?
fill from
Yeah.
Google. Pre-order and in stock.
So keep that in mind when you're looking around at things. I thought it was worth touching on, and then we'll run through the rest of our news items.
Wow.
Everything's out of stock.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Except for
it is.
pre-orders.
Yeah, pre-orders, whatever.
Only from Amazon from one vendor or something.
Yeah. GTX 1080. Let's
There's
see.
stock available on eBay.
Yeah, it always tells you there's stock available on eBay. People are always gouging on eBay.
So out of stock, out of stock, out of stock, out of stock. Stock available, eBay, all models.
Yep.
That's crap.
1080? Oh,
Star ships from China.
wow.
Ooh. Hey, well, they all technically ship from China at some point, right?
True, you're just
No, I
getting
am
direct,
still
right?
so disappointed. I have to tell the story. There I was back in 2005 in Walmart, and I was wandering by the electronics section,
Okay.
and they brought out 4 Xbox 360s, and they put them in there, and with the sign "First come, first serve."
Okay.
This is when they were eBaying for $1,600.
Yeah, you should have bought them and eBayed them.
And so you bought 4 Xbox?
I would just been fired from my previous job. I had no money in the bank.
This is what
No.
credit
They
cards are
didn't know
for.
that
Look
yet.
at that night.
Yeah.
Oh my!
That's what credit cards are for.
They
man.
didn't know that yet.
Yeah,
Oh, man.
very sad. Could have had a really nice holiday that year, but
Indeed.
didn't
Yep.
have the
All
have
right.
the bucks.
Let's get to the rest of the stuff. ASUS apparently showed off at where was this at? Was this at
Computex?
Computex? A prototype of a 27-inch 4K 144 hertz IPS gaming monitor. And this picture came from, I guess, VR Zone. You can see here, it doesn't have a name, doesn't have a model number. It's 4K, 144 hertz. Obviously, that makes it. Does that make it DP 1.3 or
Yes.
1.4?
At
1.3.
least.
I don't know what the difference between 1.3 and 1.4 is, honestly, because both Pascal and Polaris talk about supporting 1.3/1.4, like they're both doing both.
It fits
Yeah.
within the spec for 1.3.
Okay.
So
So, Alan, you want this monitor?
I want it, but not in a 27-inch.
What do you want it in?
I want a 40.
why?
Because now he has that 40-inch and he thinks it's
Oh, no, here's the other thing. I have a 27-inch, 14...
4K at
25 by
27-inch
14.
is a little bit too much.
Yeah.
No,
You
it's
know,
not.
you don't.
density.
You
Not for
barely
gaming.
need AA.
It's not...
with
For
that.
gaming, I agree. Like, but for normal use, a 4K monitor on in a 27-inch form factor seems a little dense.
Yeah.
It's too small.
Until but see, you can't say too small because scaling should fix it. Scaling doesn't always fix it in Windows,
But
right?
scaling,
There's some
doesn't always work.
Scaling sucks ass in Windows.
It doesn't suck.
Yeah.
It doesn't suck anymore. It's not. It's not perfect.
It sucks.
It's not great.
It's not perfect. But like
It's
every
better.
laptop that ships with a 3200 by 1800 resolution screen has 250% scaling.
Then
on it.
you
it's
have to
doing
use it.
something, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's working. I bet. No, I can't talk about that yet. that tablet over there, I bet it has scaling on.
Oh yeah, probably. It's
I'm
probably
sure
on.
it does.
Yeah, it has to, right?
I don't know. Stuff looks kind of small on that screen.
Yeah, maybe they're only doing 150% scaling or something. But so I
here's the
agree.
thing,
Like,
I don't
if this
need,
were
like-
32, it would be better for me.
Yeah.
Even
Like if anything, 25 by 14 on the 27-inch panel I got in my house, compared to even the 25 by 16 30-inch, the Dell that came from.
right.
Like even the 25 by 14 27 seems small to me. Like on the small side.
Yeah.
Like what do you mean by?
The pitch is noticeably smaller.
But it has less pixels, and it's like
It's
3
still-
inches
it's
smaller,
still
it has
smaller
less
pitch.
pixels. It can't be that much different PPI than your other one.
Then what? Your 30-inch,
The Dell 30.
25 by 16?
Yep.
It can't be
think
that
you're
much.
kind of crazy.
I think
Stuff's
I think
smaller.
25 by 14, 27-inch is probably perfect.
25 by
For-
14. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
Which is probably perfect, where you don't need scaling and the pitch is fantastic. And
that monitor in a 37 or a 40 or a 43, take my money. I would
but
pay
that's
like
not a monitor.
yeah.
what?
Only crazy people have a 40-inch monitor on their desk.
I mean, it's
I'm
true.
looking
Yeah,
at
but
you.
you're talking to at least two of them right now.
Like
Who
I'm
else
looking
has a
at you.
40-inch
Seiki Pro
monitor?
40-inch.
Yes,
I've
but
got
you use half of it.
324s. Does that count?
Huh?
He uses all of it in Excel.
You don't use the top half of it because
I use all of it in Excel.
Yes, because
Every square inch of that
yes,
sucker.
but if you're not having an Excel document full screened on that thing, you're only
It's
using
true.
half of the monitor.
yeah, no,
It's a little bit
I get it.
close for that, but
Yeah.
actually, the monitor should be able to be lower than your desk.
yes.
Take the stand off of it completely. So no word on if it's FreeSync or G-Sync. I assume it will be one of them. ASUS has a really good relationship with NVIDIA on that side, so maybe that's what we'll see it as.
I mean,
so.
I see Josh's point on that you don't need AA, basically.
No.
You sort of do.
Or you know,
Not
if
as
you're
much.
yeah, if you're picky about aliasing, okay, but it's probably just 2x. You could probably get away with,
Yeah.
honestly. On
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
16x would not be needed.
yeah, the pitch is so small, like it's hard to see, you know, aliasing at all on the
Yeah.
thing.
Well, I mean, it's something like I think someone said about 4K at 12 inches is where we can't really notice aliasing with the way our vision works.
4K at 12 inches. At
But
what
but how
size?
far away?
Yeah,
But
he said 12
only,
inches.
but I mean, we're talking about
4K, how big a screen? 12
close
inches
enough
away.
to sniff it.
screen. I mean, it's yeah. It's I mean, it's still we still have a ways to go before we don't need anti-aliasing, but you certainly need far less at 4K
Yeah.
and 27 inch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I went to a Lenovo launch event where they announced a couple of products. The
Are they
Moto,
fabulous?
the Moto Z, which I got really excited because they showed the Razr, the Motorola Razr, and they're like, in the spirit of, and I was like, shit, they're gonna make a new flip phone. This is gonna be amazing.
Did you see the teaser video they put out a few weeks ago?
I don't know.
It was essentially like it's a Razor ad.
Was it
like
really?
it was a bunch of people in like a high school set in the early 2000s, and they're all on their Razor and like cut back between people walking down the hallway.
Oh shit.
So what they actually? Oh no, that's that thing.
Just
Okay,
an
got
Android
it.
smartphone.
Yeah. So, but the reason they brought back the Snap or something was because it has magnets on the back, and you can add. You know, how the G5 has modular parts to it.
Yeah.
The LG G5 had like this modularity.
Yep.
It was kind of clunky because you had to take the bottom of the phone off, which means you had to take the battery out, so you had to reboot the phone each time.
Yep.
Theirs is like pogo pins on the back.
Okay.
Not the pins, but like the contacts for it.
The pins are on the thing.
Yeah. And then 4 pretty strong magnets so that they'd latch on.
Okay.
You don't have to reboot the phone. They announced a mini projector, a Bluetooth, like not a Bluetooth, but like a set of like stereo speakers that attach to the back of it. They actually sounded pretty good.
You know, that's along the lines of those other little desktop device things that they were. What were those things? The stackable.
The Lenovo stacks.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the exact same
The
idea.
same kind of thing.
It's the same idea, yeah. And then the other one was a battery add-on to it as well.
Sure.
And so it was cool. It was neat. We'll get those in eventually as well. But they also announced Lenovo Fab 2 family, the flagship of which is the Fab 2 Ultra or Fab 2 Pro, which is a
Home Improvement Edition.
Google Tango device.
Okay.
So Google's Project Tango, now just Google Tango, was the idea of using depth and 3D cameras to measure spaces and to basically, I guess the idea is Google wants to measure the spaces around you and do interesting things with that.
Is that their competing thing to the Intel?
It's like RealSense, but it's
room scale.
It's way better.
Okay.
It's way better, right? Like
So did you introduce yourself to Nicole Curtis?
I did not. Is that her real voice?
Yes, she sounds like that.
Who are you talking about?
That's not just an
I have
act
no
or something.
idea.
Okay.
No.
I honestly didn't know who she was until this event. But I was sitting next to somebody, and she came on, and she was the one who demoed the phone that wrapped around your wrist. They had like a prototype of a phone that had a flexible screen that wrapped around your wrist.
With the smart shoes back?
I think she did the smart shoes too.
Oh, nice.
But she has this very high-pitched, squeaky voice that I thought, like as soon as
Are
she
we
started
talking
talking,
about the same person? Because Nicole
guess
Curtis does house flipping.
oh,
She takes
no,
dilapidated houses.
Nope, no, we're not talking about the same person.
Turns them into mansions.
I still did not introduce myself to her either. No,
Okay,
I'll look
well.
up the name of the girl that I'm talking about. She demoed the wrist cell phone, and she had a very high-pitched, squeaky voice. And I thought, it's probably not real. But nobody else said anything, so I kept my mouth shut. But the Fab 2 Pro has 4 cameras on it. It has a depth camera on the back, as well as stereoscopic cameras. And the idea is, so I actually did a demo of Project Tango at Mobile World Congress in Barcelona. They took us to a museum, and it was in a tablet at that point. And it's been given the information about the space that it's in, and it like sets up a personalized walkthrough of the museum for you, and it paints the walking directions on the floor as you walk around the building.
AR.
It's AR, essentially. And when you hold it up to the painting or a sculpture or whatever it is you're looking at, like it would point out specific things, touch here for more information,
Pretty cool.
back videos. It's a really cool idea. And the Fab 2 Pro is now a 6.4-inch phone / tablet, right? 6.4-inch, 2560 by 1440 IPS display that has the same capabilities built into it. And it's interesting. So it has a 16 megapixel fast focus, a depth sensor, and a motion tracking sensor. The depth and the motion sensing tracking sensors are for Tango, and then it has a front-facing one as well.
Well, they got the name right.
Yeah, but
Fab.
So like the reason that the girl that Josh was talking about was there, who does shows on DIY Network or HGTV or something like that.
Yeah.
Where she does like house repairs. This phone's going to be sold at Lowe's. And like
Among other places, I assume.
Best Buy as well.
Crap, I gotta go to Lowe's. It's gonna be a line
And
around the
Home
block.
Hardware and Home Depot and Revy and Rona and Walmart.
But it's going to be sold like as a tool. And the idea is that this is what we were talking about it when we were going through the new office space, where I was like, this would be really great because I want to measure this whole space so that I can take the data and then like lay out how I want to set up the office. And the Project Tango.
Are you going to do that with your church?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm talking about. The new office. It basically, and when you go into a new space, if you want it to map it, it creates a point cloud of the entire area as you walk around it, and you don't have to like stand in a spot and then make sure you're.
It's just on the fly point cloud.
Yeah.
That's actually badass.
Right?
Yeah,
and
you just
so,
go,
and you do this, and you just kind of walk around and make sure it gets enough data from all the different locations, and then it will create this point cloud of the space that you're in.
That's
you can
pretty
do
sweet.
all kinds of stuff with that data. Like one of the demos they had there was a dinosaur type exhibit, right? So like you could use it, and again, it's all AR type stuff. You say, put in a Tyrannosaurus Rex in my living room, and it will do that. And so it knows the space, and it will walk around, and you can scale it up and down to full size to 10% scale or whatever. And you can walk around it with the phone, obviously, and kind of look at things. So it is an AR system that has some pretty cool applications for it, right? They showed you, they showed it with what's her name again?
Nicole
Curtis. Like the reason Lowe's would have it is like they have an application for it that will say, okay, it measured your whole space. Replace all the carpets with hardwood floors, and it will show you what it looks like on your phone. It'll say, okay, can I fit this piece of furniture there, right? And it because it knows all the dimensions, and you can place it and rotate it, and then you can walk around it and see what it looks like and how much space you have. It's a really cool thing.
And then you can set it in VR mode and just walk around with glasses and pretend you live in that place.
No. I want to 3D print a model of the new office.
There you go.
Ooh.
See?
From your phone.
Oh, yeah.
With the point cloud, you can do that. So I'm actually excited to get my hands on that because I think it has some interesting applications besides just being like a really giant phone. It's $499 unlocked, available in September. That's not a super expensive price.
That's almost cheap for a new cell phone right now.
I mean, it's reasonable. It doesn't have like a Snapdragon 820 or anything like that. It's got a Snapdragon 652, 4 gigs of memory, which is a lot, 64 gigs of storage with micro SD and that type of stuff. So it's a decent phone otherwise.
Yep.
But this Project Tango stuff is pretty impressive. So there's other devices in there if you want to check them out, but that's obviously the one that stood out to us. Let's see. Oh, this one was interesting. On a leak slide from Intel where they're talking about Kaby Lake.
Yep.
Some information actually showed about Optane crosspoint SSDs, right?
Sure did. Several different types as well. So this seems to be how at least Intel plans to roll out Crosspoint under their Optane brand. And they're going to do it kind of starting at the bottom of that slide. You've got system acceleration. So they're kind of bringing back, from the looks of it, they're kind of bringing back what they did back in the day with that 20 gig SLC SSD that they... Remember that? Remember the Larson Creek, I think, or something?
Oh, yeah.
Right? They shipped out
the caching stuff
for the Intel RST caching, right?
For some reason, when you said 20 gig, I was thinking an enormous SSD.
No,
like 20 terabyte.
Gig.
I was like,
20 gig was just 20 gig of SLC on their old 10-channel controller. Remember that? And that was only a SATA 2 SSD, a 3 gigabit SATA SSD, and that's when 6 gigabit was actually like already out, and they were shipping this thing. But because it was SLC and it was so quick, it could still accelerate hard disks, right?
Right.
Well, imagine if you took that same kind of thing, which I don't know for sure that that's what they're going to do, but imagine if you took Intel's, RST driver, which they already, kind of have everywhere, right? Their rapid response, their smart response technology and stuff like that. If you took that and had a thing faster than an SSD, in other words, Crosspoint, a small Crosspoint drive, so it doesn't cost an arm and a leg.
Okay.
Right? In other words, a thing called an accelerator, right?
Oh, yeah.
Put that in a system. It's those bottom blocks. They're the orange ones. And, plug that into a system and maybe have it, at a minimum, have it accelerate your hard disks, if you still have hard disks in some kind of, OEM-ish kind of cheap system, right? Imagine, what 16 to 32 gig worth of basically RAM cache would do.
Okay.
To, a hard disk system, right?
I like it.
Like, most of the stuff you're running could just fit onto the Crosspoint.
Right. And
then it would basically be like a RAM disk speed. Not just SSD speed, RAM disk speed, right? It's basically, they're not even... And kind of in the same vein as they're only doing... when they only did SATA 2 on their caching thing before, their base models here are only PCIe 3.0 by 2.
Right.
So the thing is, if you only have 16 or 32 gig of something, if you do by 4, you're blowing through all of it in less than a second.
Sounds good.
Well, not less than a second. It'll take you a few seconds.
Sure.
But you're blowing through it so fast, and that's not what its use case is for. It's not for sequentials. It's meant for the random access. All of the little things that you're trying to read would be cached there.
Okay.
Right? You're not going to cache your bulk files. You're going to cache your anything that's random I/O off your disk, right? Take all your random I/O, stick it in a thing that loves random I/O. Even better than an SSD loves random I/O.
Right.
Because they kind of don't love it if you do random writes. Crosspoint, you can do single byte random writes to it all day long, and it'll just go full speed, theoretically. So, cool idea. We don't know what the size of the thing would be, but I think that if you add $20 to the cost of making some kind of low-end laptop or mid-grade laptop in this case that has a very large hard drive in it, but you have for $20 or $30 you have this Crosspoint part on there, and then you have this caching layer going on. It could be
cache for a hard drive instead of just a cache for an SSD.
Well, I don't know if they're going to cache an SSD. You could also do that with this because it is again way faster than an SSD.
But what
right?
would the benefit actually be?
For random write performance, it'd be through the roof.
on even against an SSD to cache SSD.
Yeah, it'd be through the roof
For random write,
Yes.
but it would still have to be copied to the drive eventually. Yeah,
It wouldn't because it's not RAM.
Oh,
That's the whole advantage of Crosspoint, right?
Yeah.
It do not worry. Power loss protection isn't even a concern.
When they did
right?
SSD caching, they still duplicated everything, right?
Yes, it was just a duplicate of it, right? But they don't have to do that with this.
Okay. Makes sense.
Either way, like, it could cache it, stick it on the solar drive later, whatever, right? But it would be a very very much faster than what solid state would do.
Yeah.
Even PCIe solid state. So,
what are they saying here?
Apart from the accelerator things, you've got they're kind of skipping over mainstream. They don't intend to put that out in mainstream, even in like the near future from the looks of this chart.
Yep.
For that purpose, it looks like they just want to go with their 3D NAND. And note that they're doing purple products there, meaning when they do their 3D NAND products, it's going to be TLC. There is no MLC 3D NAND blocks.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? They're probably also going to do the thing that like Micron was doing with the MX300, where you can make some of it SLC if you want, or maybe they'll do some kind of I don't know. But
okay.
But if you up into the enthusiast workstation thing, they have other Optane products that would be meant to be like your primary storage for a system.
Gimme.
Probably going to be expensive.
Gimme.
And the thing that's also a question mark.
I like the name Mansion Beach.
Yeah. Mansion Beach.
If you don't have one of those, don't bother.
So Mansion Beach is by 4 PCIe 3, and then there's Brighton Beach, which is again like the Accelerator was. It's 3.0 by 2.
Right.
Gimme.
Yeah. So if you think about like
I like how the next one over from Mansion Beach just says Mansion Beach refresh.
Yeah, they're just like,
we don't even know.
Some refresh of it later.
We don't even know.
And we don't know if maybe those products would be like, Optane doesn't necessarily mean it's only Crosspoint. You see what I mean there?
It could be a drive that is
could,
Crosspoint and SSD.
It could be a Crosspoint cache with a controller smart enough to be able to handle the caching and then like have a TLC.
Yeah, because Optane is the brand, not the technology.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Sure.
Even though it's called Intel Optane technology, keep in mind that it is a brand.
It is a brand
associated with Crosspoint.
It's the brand they started for Crosspoint. So I don't think you're going to find an Optane product that doesn't have Crosspoint in it at all. But I just think it would be smart to have like Crosspoint like with another tier, like a bulk storage tier.
Yeah, the
or
idea
something.
that in the end of this year we would have an Optane SSD that's like 500 gigs or a terabyte that you might make your only drive. Sounds improbable.
Yeah, I think it would be very expensive.
They said that there would be a P3700 level Crosspoint drive in like the end of 2017 or the end of 2016.
Well, so the catch here is this slide does not cover enterprise.
Well, yeah, but the enthusiast desktop part is probably the enterprise part, as Intel has done.
There would be an equivalent, they would do the same kind of thing as like the 750 and the P3700, probably. I would imagine the enterprise part would just be like a crap load more of that, of that Crosspoint on a part. But yeah, I mean, what I'm interested in is something like, even something like an SSD 750 or just like any NAND SSD right now. If you took like 32 gig worth of Crosspoint and you integrated it into that thing, you're going to make an enormous difference. Like, because that 32 gig, only like a gig or two of it would be needed for what the DRAM does now, which is keep track of all the, where everything is stored, flash translation layer, all that stuff, right? You could have that in non-volatile memory that's as fast as the RAM you replaced it with, and now you don't need power loss protection. You're just not worried about it anymore.
Yeah.
Power went away. Who cares? Like, whatever.
Well, I still kind of care.
Like, my tables,
but not because of
my
storage.
tables didn't go away. They're just saved, right? The power was gone, right? And that leaves you like another 30 gig or so to just make a cache. Imagine like an SSD with a 30 gig RAM cache on the front of it. Yeah. Like, that's awesome, right?
I'm going to make a bet. I think they're going to be way more aggressive than that. You think
they're just going to go?
I think it's just going to be a Crosspoint SSD.
Just a okay. I mean, they could go either way. Yeah. I don't know what their yields are looking like or anything.
Yeah,
it just
feels...
But it's over SATA.
yeah. The catch.
The latency's great.
The catch with Crosspoint though, Ken, is that you don't like. It's very die inefficient right now.
Yeah, I know.
It's
I just
I don't
know. I think they're going to jump in.
I mean, I think the dies are like 8 gig.
Yeah.
On
I
a
just
die.
think it's difficult for them to market something to enterprise that's a 30 gig cache, RAM cache on top of like.
Well, for enterprise, I could see them doing like here's a terabyte of Crosspoint or some crap. But it's not going to be cheap.
No, it's not.
All right, let's move on. That's our Crosspoint predictions. I didn't make it.
Wait, we just talked about Crosspoint?
Sorry.
Oh, I thought we were talking about XPoint.
Yeah, I passed out. I was doing some shots.
Bourbon.
Buddy.
You don't do shots.
Yeah, it is pronounced Crosspoint, by the way.
It is. Jeremy, what was AMD's sneak peek at the RX series that they did at the PC gaming show? I must say, even though I did not watch it, I get the feeling.
The worst part of the entire thing was when the guy walked on stage and Lisa Su got the hacksaw and she hacked off his wrist to get the case out of his hand. That was really disgusting.
It was disturbing.
exciting.
I'm just glad my ass wasn't numb during this year's PC gaming show like last year.
I must say,
Don't invest in chair padding at AMD. They just don't.
They didn't. I did not watch this year's, so this is. I don't think there was very much excitement at this year's PC gaming show like there was last year. I saw buzz and discussion from last year's.
Last year, well, whatever. Last year they did the product announcement, then the PC gaming show. So the PC gaming show really had nothing to it.
Oh yeah.
Was this the show where Nvidia was doing a giveaway in the Twitter and the thing?
No, this is the AMD sponsored show.
Oh, okay.
So the exact opposite of what you thought.
Sorry.
The exact opposite.
So what did we've got this picture here of Lisa Su holding up? Looks like the 470,
severed hand
460.
of the Courier.
Yeah.
470 and the 460.
All right.
Okay.
Or, well, at least the 460 eventually does come with a fan on it. Well, we don't know. Because one of them, the 470 will be about 75 watt or so.
Okay.
The 460 will be less than that. So both will draw off of the boss power, which is nice.
Sure.
Less than 75 watt. Maybe it doesn't even really need an active cooling fan.
So,
But we don't really know much more than that, although we know that the 470 is launching with 4 gig version,
Okay.
but they will be launching another one, which more or less implies an 8 gig version because, well, if you want to face the competition right now, you kind of need to sort of think about that. Although it'd be interesting to see if it's HBM or HBM2, GDDR5X, GDDR5.
Yeah, none of these they're all going to be GDDR5.
Yeah, I think you're right. There was very little information given.
Yeah, it looked like there was not a lot. Ken, you
They
were going to say
also
something? Oh, go ahead.
brought out a gal with a backpack.
All right.
As we've seen with MSI,
She has
this
some funny
whole
sunglasses too.
backpack computing thing for VR.
Yeah, they're not the first person to show this. MSI had one at Computex.
I think this is Alienware's.
This is an Alienware one.
This is Alienware.
And I don't
Get it.
I don't know if I'm cool with it. I don't know.
Well, because you're moving around the room and all of a sudden you go too far and the plug comes out and that's
Just think how hot your back's gonna get.
Just think of how many walls you're gonna run into.
Well, I mean, so imagine.
How long of a power cable do you need, man?
It's got a battery.
Oh, is it battery?
Battery.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's
Well, of course, it doesn't have a power cable, Josh.
The whole point of the backpack is to untether yourself.
I've got a good hour.
It's got a couple of marine.
There was something we just talked about like
I'm
a week
carrying around
ago.
120 pounds of marine batteries. It's gonna last me 3 hours of VR experience.
Wasn't it 2 weeks ago?
Awesome.
There was a backpack thing that was like you plugged in.
You probably plug it in to charge it.
Well, we didn't know if MSI
No.
plugged it in or not.
The best
The
part
MSI
about it
one?
is
Yeah.
every day is leg day.
It's shoulder day.
And lower back day.
I don't know a situation where I need to be untethered from VR so dramatically and now
That you need to carry the
that
system
I would rather
around.
have a backpack on.
You'd
with a
rather
bloody-
buy a completely
do
different
it.
computer.
Now, to be
battery
fair,
in it.
here's the thing. If we were doing AR
Yeah.
instead of VR, where like you don't have to worry about like if you walk around your house with this, you're not gonna run into walls and shit, right? Maybe you could make the case, right? But if you thought people looked at you oddly for wearing a VR headset, imagine if you had a backpack with fans whirring through it and like cables coming up.
You see the video of that girl that got like the crap scared out of her in the VR, and like she beeline, like her like flight impulse, like instinct just kicked. She beeline right for the corner of the room and ran like face first right into the wall with the headset on.
As if they would do cheap lithium-ion batteries, and you're going at it, and those things start on fire.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really immersive.
It's getting really warm here.
You thought you're taking fire damage.
It is a
And you get the version, so now you got a sling over your shoulder with another 12-volt marine battery in it. This is a potential solution to a problem.
I think it's a problem to a solution.
Exist.
But I don't think the problem is as dramatic as these solutions create it. Like, now, if this is a backpack with the system so that, like, if you do VR demos, if you are a game developer and you want to go around and show this to a bunch of people, or you're a hardware vendor, right, it makes sense to have a portable system. Just like it made sense to have a gaming laptop that could do VR so you didn't have to lug around a system and a display and all the other shit. Yeah. This... I don't know.
Yeah,
anyway, what else did they show, Jeremy?
We saw Doom running on a Zen, an undefined Zen running at an undefined clock speed, but
so it's as good as a Pentium 4.
it was running Doom.
Oh man. Okay. All right. Well, that's better than playing back a movie.
It actually was multitasking.
Yeah.
So this is good, but. It would have been nice to get a bit of information more than this Zen.
Yeah, it's going to be a while.
Ain't around it. It'll be a while, but hey, it's running. It can support Doom.
Ta-da! Ta-da! And the other bit of news on the RX 4. Go ahead.
So the point I was going to bring up earlier is at GDC we saw a passive Polaris 11 demo.
We did, yes.
So that could explain a little bit of the 460 stuff. Maybe there will be passive SKUs of that.
Right. Maybe. Yeah, that's true. Maybe. All right. And Jeremy, you also posted the RX 470 benchmarks leaking out, apparently.
The pipes have been leaky this week. There's been a few things. This was Hilbert over at Guru of 3D dug through the footnotes of the PDF that AMD released not too long ago. And realized that they'd actually spilled a couple of performance numbers. Now, take these with a grain of salt. They told us it was on a 590 or 5960X with 16 gigs and driver version 16.2. We don't know pretty much any of the other settings. But, I mean, they were showing on Overwatch at 1080p. The 270X was running at about 676 frames a second, 121 for the new 470. Hitman, relatively the same, 28 versus 60, and Ashes of the Singularity, not quite as good at his advantage, 28 versus 46. Firestrike puts it about where you'd expect it to be, firmly in the middle of the pack. But
it puts it above a 80X.
Yep.
Below a 290X.
Reaching towards the Titan.
Yeah, well, the original Titan.
GTX 780, it's above that. I mean,
what's important, I think, if we look at recent, like, so it's below the GTX 970, right? And I think that's an important qualification for it to hit. And this kind of makes sense with what I have been expecting the RX 480 to come in at, somewhere between a 970 and a 980. So that, leaves 1,000 points above the 470 for the 480 to differentiate in some way. This is, I mean, depending on if this is a, be less than $199 because they said the 480 is going to be $199. So if this is 150,
man,
right?
So if this is 150, awesome 170,
yeah, it's great for 150.
Yeah, hell yeah, it is.
Yeah,
no, that's pretty damn good, especially because you can afford two of them.
Yeah.
You don't know what I can afford.
For sure.
Yeah, but you got a brand new job, Ken.
Yeah, that means he can't afford two of them.
At least dime.
It means I at least don't have any time to use anything.
Right. That's what having a real job is like.
True.
It sucks, huh?
Right.
Man. All right, let's get into our hardware and software picks of the week. Mine is a tentative one, meaning I'm not telling you to buy it until I spend a little bit more time with it, but I got a handful of these in. These are the Trackrs. These are little discs that have watch batteries in them. They are Bluetooth LE enabled, and the app that you install on your phone, iOS, Android, obviously supported, is the idea that you pair it up with something. So you put one of these discs around your keychain, or you put one of these discs in your purse, or
Your child.
on your child, or in a backpack, or something like that. And they can help you find each other. They are lost.
Yep.
If you can't find your keys, you open up the app and it will search for your device, and it will tell you like a hot or cold, like it won't pinpoint it exactly because it's not a GPS device. It's basically using the signal strength of the Bluetooth for you're getting further away or you're getting closer.
Yep. You have to be within Bluetooth range.
Right. You have to be within Bluetooth range for it to even work. So you have to have some idea of where it is. And you can actually tell it to chime, like you can hit a button and it will make a noise. Right? So it'll help you find your keys if they're like down in a couch cushion or underneath something or whatever. You can actually go in reverse if you have your Trackr device, but you don't know where your phone is. If you hit the button on the Trackr, you have to do it a couple of times, I've found, before it actually registers it. Your phone will start to set off an alarm, and it actually turns the volume all the way up too. I did notice this because I had the volume down very low.
Oh, cool.
I did it, and then I saw it ratchet the volume all the way up before it started the chime out. So it's a pretty neat little device. They recommend some other options of like you can put it on your pet's collar or something like that. Again, you have to be within Bluetooth range, so it's a little bit.
So are you sure this doesn't work? I know how the tag works, which is kind of the other one of this.
Tag was the dog one you're thinking of.
Sorry, tile.
Yep.
It works. So if I have a Trackr and
you are near my dog,
I lose, and I'm near your dog, my phone will report the location of your dog.
Yep, it will do that.
Yeah,
it will
uses everyone as a network.
Oh, okay.
But that obviously depends on a lot of people having this device around you, and it makes much more sense in a New York City, San Francisco, like metro area, than it does in a rural area, because like my neighbor probably isn't within Bluetooth range of me in my house.
So you could just kill your neighbor's phone by just constantly trying to find the Trackr.
Just try. Well, like
it's just Bluetoothing out to try to find.
It uses the global, like my phone would know about his Trackr device necessarily, but the network would.
Yeah.
Right. So So it's a 3.5 millimeter thick device, 31 millimeters, about the size of a quarter. They even said about like put one in your wallet or your diaper bag.
So you can have the condom ring on your wallet.
And it also has separation. What do they call it? Separation alarms, right?
Anxiety.
So separation anxiety. So you can set it so that I always know my keys are within reach of my cell phone.
Yep.
And if the two ever start to separate, they will both beep. You set which one you
both
want to
will beep.
Yeah. You can actually set it which one, right? You want your keys to beep or you want your phone to beep.
You can't do both?
You can do both.
Okay.
If you want. Right. So like if you accidentally left your keys at the restaurant, you walk outside,
your keys
the phone
start
starts to beep. Then we did this when I went to dinner with Kelly at the restaurant last night.
Yep.
Where I left
Sizzler.
my keys in her car and I walked away and my phone started to beep.
It was BJ's, Josh.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
BJ's.
Take
a drink.
Big boy.
What else can you do on it? You can, I guess that's kind of the
basically
shtick
it.
of it. I think they're $29 if you buy a single one, which is a little bit pricey. They say it'll last a year on the battery that it comes with,
Which does come out.
It's not a rechargeable device or anything. But if you buy like 4, you get 6 free. It's like that type of thing. Yeah, like you buy 120 for 10 of them or something like that. They're trying to sell them in bulk, right?
Yeah.
So it's a pretty neat little device. I'm going to spend some more time with it over the next weeks, and get some idea of when it works, when it doesn't. Like I don't think it's thin enough to put it in my wallet.
Yeah.
Right. But I do like it. I put one on my keys and I put one on my backpack. And it also is really smart. I just saw this feature where if you're in a home network, if you're in your own Wi-Fi network, it disables your separation alarms. So like if you come home and you put your keys on a keychain downstairs and you go upstairs with your phone to go to bed it's not going to beep and say, "Oh my God,
Oh, where's your
separating
keys?
phone," right?
Oh,
It
no.
knows you're on a known Wi-Fi network, so it's good that way. So that's Trackr without an E, Trackr. I believe the URL is thetracker.com.
Wonder
Yes,
if
it
are
is.
they water resistant?
They're probably water resistant. They do sell like a silicone sleeve
Okay.
for it, and they actually sell a metal carabiner as well. So, there you go. That's
No,
what
I
you
feel
got.
bad because I get like an email or two a week from these guys, and I never forwarded them on to you.
Yeah, it's all right. It's just an interesting little thing. I don't know. We'll see.
I will
see how
now.
useful it is. Okay, Jeremy.
Oh, I ran into a guy that I have come to like very much. He's playing around with Arduinos and essentially put up a post about the Internet of Wrongs. So he had a roommate that used a Mac and always bragged about how the Mac's battery was so much better than the PC's. It was just substantially better. So he built a little Wacom LAN sender, figuring out that Mac's, the destination port is 9. It is not for PCs. And so it just constantly sent out a little Wacom LAN. So anytime that little apple went to sleep, it got woken up. Apparently,
That's pretty good.
he meant to just do this for a couple of weeks just to annoy the guy, but he left for a 6-month job and forgot about it.
And left it on the network.
Oh no.
Oh, he doesn't feel that bad about it. He also built one. He had some neighbors down in South Africa that were just bugging the hell out of him. So he built what is essentially just generates random SIDs or SSIDs through a wireless network every 2.5 seconds. So it floods itself with how wonderful he was anytime you refreshed your wireless networks. And the which is the best of all things.
All right.
It just sends wireless deauths to whatever you don't like.
Get off the network.
This one he wouldn't post the code for. It's going to come up in not too long. There's a conference that he did present it at, which will release it. So technically tied to him. But yeah, he just sort of built this for
guy sounds like an
any
asshole.
certain search strings that connected to his WAN, just sort of deauthed it. And
what's
you'll have
the-
to look at the software-defined radio one. That's just crazy.
What's the hotel that got in trouble for kicking
Marriott.
people off of their own?
Marriott.
It was Marriott?
No, they weren't kicking people off.
They were sending deauths.
I thought they were jamming.
No, they were sending deauths. That system that they were using had an option where you could tell it to send deauths on other networks. And that's what it was doing. So it was
So
kicking.
if you
That's
had
what
your
it
own
was doing.
Wi-Fi hotspot, you
it
would get kicked off.
You would get kicked off of your own hotspot.
So
yeah.
you
And
wanted
this
to
thing?
use theirs.
Is like $15. Like it's just stupidly cheap what you can do with an Arduino and a couple of the $2 Wi-Fi chips.
It's pretty
So
funny.
it's dirt cheap, and you just sort of put it somewhere and leave it.
It's Josh next.
All right. Josh, what do you got?
Me. Okay, so I've been using this motherboard for my latest test bed. Hopefully they can go to the graphics test bed eventually. The Gigabyte Z170 XUD5. It's, it's not the least expensive model out there, but it's nicely priced.
Yeah.
It's got the metal bands around TIE. It's got the good audio. It's USB 3.1. Can overclock like a champ. It stays cool. It's got plenty of expansion options. A really, really solid board that I have enjoyed working with. Stuff is just fast on it, and it's got plenty of features. Really solid. I've enjoyed it immensely. There you have it.
There you have it.
It's a nice motherboard.
$171.99 on Amazon. That's good.
Okay.
Hey, that could be a top tech for dad gift. I mean,
I've already got it, so who's going to get something else?
maybe it's for somebody else's dad. Who cares about you?
Nobody cares.
All right, moving on.
Well, we
Alan.
don't call you daddy, that's for sure.
Well, thank God.
Alan, what do you
All right,
got?
so this is the thing that costs money and probably shouldn't cost money, but there's a trial that could solve a problem that you might have.
Okay.
So that's why I'm putting it out there. Okay.
It's okay that people sometimes.
It's true,
can
but you
recommend
probably
that.
wouldn't need to use this continuously unless you just kept having random issues.
Okay.
There's a thing called I think it's just safely-remove.com.
USB safely remove.
Yeah.
So it's Crystal Rich.
It's an app.
Sweet ass name.
You know that little thing that sits down next to the clock that you never use, Ryan?
Yeah.
That you just yank.
Safely remove hardware.
You just yank the drive. Yeah.
Pull the drive.
This app actually replaces that. It somehow tells Windows to kill that thing. So that goes away, and in its place you get this on the tray.
Okay.
And it does the same job, but if it can't remove your device for some reason, it tells you why. It tells you what is using what file. It tells you what application is accessing what stuff on the drive, right? So if you've had this issue...
CryptoLocker.exe is usually...
Well, it could be anything, right? But so if you've had an issue on your system where you're trying to correctly remove your USB things or whatever, and you constantly get that this device is in use and whatever, and you're like trying to shut down your system just to safely unplug the thing, you could find out what it was that your computer was doing. So in my case, I had an app that was trying to like index drives, and it was for some reason trying to index that USB drive, even though I told it not to. And I figured it out because there's no Windows mechanism normally to tell you why. It just says, sorry, I can't remove it because there's stuff using it. It just doesn't tell you what the stuff is. This app does, and it does it pretty well. And I actually, I used it actually just today, and it definitely gives you the list. Tells you exactly what service or app or whatever has its hooks into that drive.
Man, you can even use command line for safe removal.
You could
automate that.
You could, and it handles even like
PCMCIA.
Yeah, it handles like SATA devices as well. Like if you want to do a SATA hot swap remove, which is different than a USB remove as far as the Windows kernel goes. Yeah. It handles all that stuff. It does it pretty well. I think it's like $30.
Oof.
That's what I see. It's kind of steep for just an app that does that, right?
Yeah.
$5 I give you, son.
But again, it's like a trial, and if you are just troubleshooting a problem, the trial is probably good enough because you only have to try to remove one time to get the list of what kept stopping it, right?
Order. So, $19.99.
Oh, $20.
Still,
it's still on the high side for what it does.
Still,
right. I mean, it's only adding one more thing to something that Windows already does. Right, it's not like Windows doesn't have a remove thing at all. It just doesn't tell you why.
Let's watch it.
It's only $299.
It costs more in Cyrillic.
It's only $299 PY6s.
Yeah,
it's Cyrillic money, right?
That's not real money.
Srollers. Anyway, might be handy for somebody if you got weird issues with
That's
dismounting.
weird that the Spanish and the German version also have US dollars as their currency as well, for some reason.
Euros, I'll tell you that.
True. All right, so that's everybody, right?
I think so.
That's it.
Ken, you got a pick?
Nope.
Not your TV?
Thank the Lord.
Not yet.
Haven't evaluated that.
Gotta use it. All right,
so that is it for the show for tonight, guys. We thank everybody for joining us. PCPer.com/pod. Go to that URL. You can find all of the back episodes, ways to subscribe, video RSS, audio RSS, YouTube links, SoundCloud files. All the stuff is located there. And if you go to PCPer.com/subscribe, you can sign up for our notification list where we will let you know when we're going to do live streams. If you want to be here live and hang out in the chat room and participate in the excitement that is Burning Office podcasting at PC Perspective. So I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Thank everybody for downloading the show, listening to it. Really appreciate it. As well as to those of you who are contributors, really, really, really appreciate that as well. It means a lot to us. And hopefully more of you will sign up in the coming days as well. So with that, we will sign out. I'm Ryan Shrout.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath.
And I'm Allyn Malventano.
Bye.